First Parish in Concord. I am the Reverend Amy Friedman. I serve here as your Minister of Religious Education. This is the Sunday before Thanksgiving. Whew. And it is good to have all ages together to celebrate. I also welcome those of you who are joining us online and all ages within our sanctuary. By the front door, you will find a table called Soul Work. And if you haven't checked that out yet, there are packets with colored pencils and sewing cards, and there are pipe cleaners for creating. And the reason we have that there is that research finds that certain kinds of handiwork stimulate the same brain activity as prayer and meditation. So if you find that helps you center and be present, all ages are welcome to take supplies from our table. And today we have actually I Am Thankful booklets, which you're welcome to either use while you're here in the sanctuary or take home with you. We just ask that you please return the supplies themselves to the table. There's also a wiggle room downstairs in the parlor. That's a place where young ones are welcome to play with toys, and caregivers can watch our service, which is live streamed over the TV. I want to call your attention to the pink insert, which is full of announcements of upcoming activities and opportunities in our community. Following the service, you are welcome to both our worship sharing circle and coffee hour. You can access both of those by either using the stairs or the elevator, which is located in this direction. And I would like to introduce today Jim Reynolds, who is our governing board rep. Jim, as those of us who know him, is a very friendly person. So if you would like to connect with him in conversation, or if you have questions about our community, Jim, among many of us, is a good person to talk to. Thank you so much. Our call to worship this morning is by Andrew Pacula. Come into this circle of community. Come into this sacred space. Be not tentative. Bring your whole self. Bring the joy that makes your heart sing. Bring your kindness and your compassion. Bring also your sorrow and your pain. Bring your brokenness and your disappointments. Spirit of love and mystery, help us to recognize the spark of the divine that resides within each of us. May we know the joy of wholeness. Come, let us worship together. I've asked Beth, our fabulous director of music ministry, to light our chalice. If any of you are guests here this morning, the flaming chalice is a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. Let us join in the chalice lighting response. O flame of our faith, open our hearts and fill our bodies and souls with persistent strength. Enliven our spirits and engage us deeply in this life of ours, this sacred, essential moment now. Our opening hymn this morning is a traditional Thanksgiving hymn, Come Ye Thankful People. You'll find it number 68 in the gray hymnal or on our screens. Please rise in body or in spirit.
Praise the song of harvest home. Leskren, and I will be leading a responsive reading this morning with Hugh Morgan and Emma Green. Your response is simply, "We give thanks this day." If you would like to read along, you will find this reading in the back of our Graham hymnal, number 512. "We Give Thanks This Day" was written by O. Eugene Pickett, a Unitarian Universalist minister and the president of the UU Association from 1979 to 1985.
For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations, we give thanks this day.
For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons, we give thanks this day.
For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements,
we give thanks this day.
For our human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression,
we give thanks this day. For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared, we give thanks this day.
For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom,
we give thanks this day. For human liberty and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose, we give thanks this day. We pray
that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. We give thanks this day.
I give thanks for the many young people who make up our community, and our time for all ages this morning features our religious education program, and I want to thank especially Barbara Olson and Anderson Manuel for leading us in a video message that we are sending in response to a video message that we received from our partner congregation in Seki Karastur, Transylvania. So I hope that you will enjoy.
Oh, we give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. For this precious day. For all gathered here. For all gathered here. And those far away. And those far away. For this time we share. For this time we share. With love and care. With love and care. Oh, we give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. One more time. Oh, we give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. For this precious day. All gathered here. All gathered here. And those far away. And those far away. For this time we share. For this time. Oh, we give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. For this precious day. For all gathered here. For all gathered here. And those far away. And those far away. For this time we share. For this time we share. With love and care. With love and care. Oh, we give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. One more time. Oh, we give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. For this precious day. For all gathered here. For all gathered here. And those far away. And those far away. For this time we share. For this time we share. With love and care. With love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. 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 Oh, we give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. For this precious day. For all gathered here. For all gathered here. And those far away. And those far away. For this time we share. For this time we share. With love and care. With love and care. Oh, we give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. One more time. Oh, we give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. For this precious day. All gathered here.
3, 2, 1.
Oh, we give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Then you can fade it out.
For all gathered here. For all gathered here. And those far away. For this time we share.
Good morning. My name is Dawn Van Patten, and for those of you who don't know me, I am the Assistant Director of Religious Education here at First Parish. Bless you. I am so glad that we were able to share this video with you. Our partnership with the Unitarian Church in St. Kate Caristore means a great deal to me, and it's been really nice to share more about our partners with the youth and children here. So last year, 2023, I was one of 12 travelers from First Parish who had the great pleasure to visit our partner church in St. Kate Caristore, Transylvania. And in preparation for this reflection, I reached out to some of my fellow travelers, all of my fellow travelers, and I want to thank Tim Whitney, Dave Elwood, Leah Russell, Rosalind Romberg, Doug Hardy, and Beth Norton for sharing some of their memories with me. So if you ask any one of us, we will gladly tell you about how beautiful Transylvania is. We will tell you about the lush greenness and the endless rolling hills. We'll talk at length about the generosity of our hosts, the radical hospitality, and the kind of kindness that transcends language barriers and can bring tears of happy joy to your eyes. We would show you pictures, lots and lots of pictures, and a few videos that might show you a little bit about what it's like to be there. But what I'd most like to share with you this morning is our experience with Transylvanian Thanksgiving and communion. So our trip last year was the first in-person visit with our partners since the pandemic. The last time we had spent time in person together was in the fall of 2019 when we hosted members of our partner church and a group of young musicians and dancers. Our trip, the first one since the pandemic, was planned to coincide with Transylvanian Thanksgiving, which falls on the last Sunday in September. It's a very special time there in the community and in the church. It's a time to celebrate the harvest, and we were very excited to be part of it. In the Hungarian Unitarian Church, Thanksgiving is one of only 4 occasions in the year when communion is offered. While we loved the idea of sharing the rituals of worship with our Transylvanian siblings, the idea of communion made some of us a little apprehensive. Here in our Unitarian congregation at First Parish, we practice water communion and flower communion, but not, well, communion with bread and wine. Some of us had grown away from faith traditions where communion is a central part of worship. What would it mean to take part in communion with our partners. Were we even allowed to take part? So one evening, we shared our concerns with Elud, a minister at our partner church. And the way he described communion to us, he described it as a way of celebrating an intimate embodiment of community. Though they might use the words body and blood, the belief in transubstantiation, that the bread and wine become the body and blood of Christ, is not part of their practice. At Thanksgiving, a celebration of the gifts of nature, it felt to me as if the bread and wine were the body and blood of the earth itself. So after a week of warmth, welcoming, and connection, we arrived at Thanksgiving Sunday. By then, many of the faces in the congregation were familiar to us. And when it was time for communion, we followed our Care Story siblings to the front of the church. Our partner ministers, Elud, Alpar, and Shandor, oversaw the ritual. After prayers, we received bread from Alpar and moved on to receive wine from Elud or Shandor. We took the communal cup with our right hand, took a sip, and returned to our seats. At some point, and it may have even been during the service, Beth Norton, who I will share with you has a pretty impressive facility with the Hungarian language, made the connection that by combining the word for body, the Hungarian word for body, test, and the Hungarian word for blood, ver, you have the word for siblings, testverek. The description of communion in the Hungarian Unitarian Catechism, which I'm thanking Roger Matledge for the English translation, says that members of the congregation, through participation in the sharing of one loaf and wine in common, receive the encouragement of filial love and harmony with neighbors. It goes on to say that to be worthy of partaking in communion, we must have an attitude of goodwill and love for our neighbor, because we are all brothers and sisters to each other. To my ears, communion described this way, it sounds a lot like what a community should be. After the Thanksgiving service, everyone found their way to the courtyard where there was music, dancing, and when I say food, I mean a lot of food. Even in the smallest yard in Transylvania, there's a garden or fruit trees. And at the Thanksgiving celebration, there were all kinds of homemade foods and sweets. There were sculptures made of vegetables and lots of palinka, a traditional Hungarian fruit brandy that's distilled from a variety of fruits: peaches, apricots, pears, or plums, whatever happens to be growing in someone's backyard. Everyone there wanted us to try something, and actually everyone there wanted us to try everything. It was lovely, wonderful, and joyous, a real celebration of community. We recently celebrated the 30th year of our partnership. And today, in our First Parish community, as we break bread together and celebrate and reflect on our blessings, I want us all to remember that we're in communion and community with our partners in St. Caristore on the other side of the world. We are siblings, testverek, united by our mutual beliefs and the body and blood of our shared humanity. And for that, I am so grateful.
Thank you, Dawn. On this Sunday before Thanksgiving, let us give thanks to our ancestors who made our lives possible. Some of us are indigenous to this land. Some of us were born in other countries, or our grandparents, or even further back in our family history, immigrated here. Many of us are the blending of many different cultures or diverse traditions that we adopted through friendships. Today, we honor the place of bread in our lives and listen to stories from members of our community. And I want to let you all know before we even begin that some people find that bread is not welcome, that is indigestible. And so out of care for those who have gluten-free diets, we will have gluten-free bread separately, handled with care during coffee hour. Thanksgiving is a tradition of gratitude and generosity. I would like to set the table with an excerpt from a wonderful book by Gwenilla Norris titled Becoming Bread. Making bread is as mysterious as loving, and yet it is something anyone can do. To make bread, we know we need some kind of kitchen. To love, we know we must meet each other somewhere. We know that place of meeting is none other than the here and now. There is no meeting anywhere else. We cannot live separately from what is. We are given bodies. We are given the world. We are given time. But without attention, without awareness, without true presence, we do not meet. We do not find each other. There is no kitchen. Let us meet where we already are, in the elements of our vulnerability. In this, we are together, and we cannot do without each other. This is basic. Our neighbor is our self. Thus ends the reading. And this table is set. Let us share with one another.
Just want to make sure everybody can be seen. Can you be seen? Yes. All right. My name is Tom, and together with my family here, Leah, Ben, and Noah, we're offering up some of our homemade bread. It's sort of a whole wheat, let's say, country loaf. Leah and I started baking bread, I don't know, maybe a little bit more than 10 years ago. And there's many reasons why we started baking bread and why we continue to bake bread. One is, as I'm sure many of you can relate to, as work is mainly online, where life is online, it's really nice to be able to make something whole with your hands, something that you can smell and touch and taste. So that's one of the reasons. Obviously, once you have homemade bread for the first time from your own kitchen, your own oven, it's really hard to turn back from that. I see some nodding, so I'm sure you can relate. Leigh and I also spent some time in the Middle East, and I think that influenced our love of bread as a center of our home. We lived in Egypt and Jordan, and the word for bread in Egypt is aish, and it literally means life. And it's really interesting to see some of the interconnection between bread and life in Egypt and that region in general. And you can see it in a few different ways. You can see it if you did a quick survey of history, if you would like to do some Egyptian modern reading. You could probably learn a little bit about the importance of the flour subsidies and transitioning that country from a monarchy. You could learn about the bread riots in the 70s, or even more recently to Tahrir Square in 2011, where that was obviously about freedom and dignity, but at its core was about bread as well. But Leigh and I, we didn't need to travel to Egypt or Jordan to have that perspective, had that understanding. We could have obviously just picked up a book. But what we couldn't have learned, and hopefully Leah, you'll agree, couldn't learn about the smell of the baker who was starting the day, starting the first few loaves of the day. Didn't understand that smell until you're there. Or the sounds, this is one of my favorite, the sounds of the kids lining up in the evening, especially if it was like a Ramadan evening, lining up at the bakery window. I love the feel of that, where it's like there's a window outside and you're lining up for your bread. The sounds of their voices. The hot air that comes out of the plastic bag, the steam that the Jordanian bakers, they would wrap their bread in this plastic. And when you took it home, it just poofed out, that feeling. And then the feeling, of course, of eating the bread, using it as an alternative to a spoon or a fork, pick up some chicken with it, or eggplant, or if you were lucky enough, lamb one day. And then, of course, just literally breaking bread with people who, at that moment in time, Leigh and I were pretty deeply connected to. And so a lot of those are pretty mundane memories still, but I think some of the mundane and even the boring memories end up being the most important ones. And those are the moments that we try to facilitate, Leigh and I. We try to facilitate that in our own home. And one way of doing that is through bread. And so that's why we bake bread together. And that's why we enjoy bread. That's why we enjoy life together. And so one day, I hope that I hope Noah remembers the feeling and the sound of dragging your chair up to the counter and propping it up against the counter so she can mix dough with me. Or that maybe, Ben, you'll remember one day how to shape pretzels or braid a challah bread. Or that Leah will remember the multiple times where it was my turn to my turn to make dinner. And it would be probably close to like 6 o'clock. And Leah would say something like, Tom, what other than bread are we going to have for dinner? And I would say, olive oil. We're going to have olive oil. So anyway, that's why we love to bake bread and why it's a centerpiece in our home. And hope you get a chance to try it after the service. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Good morning. It is so good to be home. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Madsy. I use they, them pronouns, and I grew up coming to this church. I've since moved to Providence, but it's like coming home every time I step into this building. So forgive me for the phone. I don't have a printer, so we are going with this. All right. I've been working in cafes and bakeries for the past 11 years. I've sold thousands of pastries and coffees and loaves of bread, and I've met some of my favorite people in these bakeries. When I lived in Boston, I worked at a place called Flour Bakery. Flour is well known for their sticky buns and chocolate cream pie, and they also happen to have amazing bread. The multigrain sourdough was my favorite. Every day, our bakers would take a portion of the primary dough culture, or mother, to make their starter. This starter would be combined with flour, water, salt, and a fun mixture of oats and seeds, then shaped and then baked in giant bread ovens. Then the loaves would be set out to cool, wrapped, and sent out to each bakery. Each of the hundreds of loaves of multigrain bread that were sent from the production kitchen every morning started from the same place. And each day, the bakers would feed the mother culture when it was hungry to help it grow and sustain. One year, at the holiday staff meeting, Joanne Chang, who's the owner of Flour, gave each of us a small container of sourdough starter, enough to make a loaf or two of bread. Her hope was that we would be able to bake a loaf to share with our family and friends. It was the same starter that had been making bread at Flour for many years and will continue for many years to come. Now, I'm not a baker. You wouldn't want it if I baked it. And I didn't have much faith in my bread abilities, so I ended up passing my starter along to a friend who would know a little more what to do with it, because I didn't want it to go to waste. And she made a loaf of delicious sourdough. Today, I am thankful for the people who helped to feed me emotionally and spiritually when I am in need. This holiday season, may we give each other sustenance whenever possible, and may we accept the nourishment that we are offered in turn. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Carolyn Showett. I started making and baking Portuguese sweetbread about 20 years ago when my grandson, Tim, was a little boy. His other grandparents are of Portuguese descent and lived in the New Bedford area of the Commonwealth. Tim would often return from a visit with them, asking if I would make a loaf for him. To this day, when Tim asks me for something, he gets it. And I must add that Tim is now 26 years old. Portuguese sweetbread, which is called dao duca in Portuguese, is easily found at bakeries in Providence and other cities where Portuguese people immigrated. But it is available, it is readily available around the holidays, but it is really a favorite bread for all seasons. At Easter, it often has colorful hard-boiled eggs implanted on top of the loaves. The eggs are often secured to the top of the loaf with dough crosses that hold the eggs in place. The dough is made with butter, flour, milk, yeast, eggs, sugar, and a pinch of salt. It is heavy and dense, and it's a challenge for these arthritic hands to knead the bread for 5 or 10 minutes. But I think it's a good excuse on strengthening my hands and fingers, and I make it often. If duck eggs are available, they are perfect to use because they add a lovely yellow hue to the loaf. There are many ways to enjoy this delicious bread, plain with butter. It also makes a delicious bread pudding. And I hope that everyone will try a slice at coffee hour after the service. And I thank Emma for carrying the loaves up to the table because I'm very good at dropping things. So, thank you.
uncool, that song, because now I'm crying and I have to go after it. So anyway, hi, I'm Teresa Hoopsher Younger, and I wanted to share why bread is so critical for me and my family. And I wanted to start with how bread is bound to my daughter, my nephews, and my nieces for a tradition we had when my mother was alive. Excuse me. For holidays, my mom made dough. So she made dough for clover loaf rolls, and it was our tradition to roll it. And it was like such a fun tradition to make these rolls that when she died, I thought, I have to keep this up. The sad thing is that I didn't have the recipe. I didn't know how she made those rolls. And, but then I realized she had already given it to me. It was in the extra special recipe was actually in Betty Crocker. So and luckily she had given me that book, so I had the Betty Crocker book. So I was able to go and share it with all my nieces and nephews. And they still continue the tradition every Thanksgiving and every Christmas. And you know, I gave them all the special recipe. The interesting thing for my nieces and nephews, they're all in the West, so Texas, Arizona, Colorado. And the ones in Colorado have another tradition that they developed themselves, which is the special roll making on snow days. So they said a snow day is a special holiday, so we have to make grandma's rolls. But the bread I brought is not her rolls. The bread that I brought is actually just as important to me. I married Roland Hoopsher in 1995. Roland Hoopsher's from Switzerland, and if you know about Switzerland, they're very picky and they're very much into bread. And so he told me, it's not appropriate to bring American bread. You have to bring something special. You have to bring Swiss bread. So I brought his rolls, and he became a really great baker after marrying me because he realized I'm not that great a baker. So he makes sop for Easter and for Christmas, and he makes gritty bens, which are bread men for St. Nicholas Day, which is actually a big holiday for us. And he makes other breads too, for every occasion you can think of. But the one I'm bringing for you is extra special. It's we call it Laugenbrötli in Swiss German, but it's Laugenbrötchen, I think, if you're German. And it's pretzel rolls. So if you like pretzels, you're gonna love them. But for me, this bread's been a way to share cultures and traditions, and it's love from people who aren't here. So it's love from Roland, it's love from my mom, and love from all of us. Thank you.
Morning. I'm Gib Metcalf, and I have brought a loaf of sourdough walnut bread. If you look at it, you'll see that the top of the loaf looks pretty good. The bottom is not so pretty. And that's par for the course for my bread making. In my cooking, I tend to specialize in grilling and flour products, pies, tarts, breads. The ideal recipe for me is one that requires me to buy a new kitchen gadget. I made a caramelized garlic tart last week that required a new tart pan. So it was just perfect. For me, bread making is a peculiar mix of solitary and social interaction. The solitary part is that I often find myself mixing dough at 6 in the morning while Rebecca is still asleep. I love that quiet time. And it's also social, obviously, in that the bread is often shared with others, well, always shared with others once done, or sometimes given away. It's also a connection with my son Simon, who lives in Los Angeles. He'll text me photos of beautiful loaves of bread that he's made. I'll text him photos of my bread, or at least the top of the loaf. Or I'll send him a recipe to try, and we connect over simple sourdough bread making. I also connect with David, an old friend living in Western Massachusetts, who is a superb cook and has written cookbooks for Julia Child, among others. He makes extraordinary rolls that he brings to each Thanksgiving gathering, a gathering of friends that goes back almost 50 years now, and will be going out this year as well to Greenfield. He has given me many cookbooks and encouraged my efforts and praised my most simple breads and pastries. So why did I make a sourdough walnut loaf? Well, the recipe came from a book that David gave me many years ago and that I've never used. It just seemed like time to dip into it, and it gave me a chance to work on my technique of rounding a loaf rather than using a bread pan. And perhaps the outcome is a bit of a metaphor for who I am. The bread is very hard on the outside, so watch your teeth. On the inside, however, it's softer and more complex. And it's a bit nutty, for whatever that's worth. I hope you enjoy it.
Good morning. I'm Suzanne Brinker, and this is my daughter Elise. She is 9. And today we are sharing a loaf of German Stollen. You might be unfamiliar with Stollen. If you are, it's a sweet raisin-filled bread that's packed with butter and sugar. So basically a bread that's trying to be a dessert. No one's complaining about that. For me, Stollen is a little bit more than just a delicious bread, though. It's a connection to my grandma Gertrud and her kitchen. I know that's a great name to say in my German accent. Now I'll admit I don't always love being German because I'm half German and half Turkish, and growing up in Germany, I sometimes felt like I was stuck between two worlds. The integration of Turks in Germany has been, let's just say, complicated since the 1970s, when guest workers came to help rebuild the country after the war, and my uncle and my dad arrived during that same decade with slightly different backgrounds, but still faced some discrimination throughout their lives, which then trickled down to me and my brother. Even though I didn't speak Turkish, I don't really have much of a connection to the country beyond my relatives. I still stood out because of my Turkish relatives, my dark hair, dark eyes, so people definitely knew I was a little bit different, and if you've ever met a German, they will show you if you're a little different. My own German family, including my grandma, weren't always great at bridging the gap either. I loved my grandma dearly, but sometimes she didn't make me feel like I fit in all that much because of my dad's background. But despite all that, there is something really nice about the simple tradition of Stollen. It always felt really warm and comforting to sit in my grandma's kitchen in the afternoon. 3 o'clock was cake time every single day. And she would have been turning 99 next weekend on December 1st, and she just loved Stollen, especially during the holidays. She grew up in 1925. She grew up during the war in a big family in a small town called Betzdorf, which is in Rheinland-Pfalz in the west of Germany. And things weren't easy for her or her 6 siblings or their mom, who was left by their dad during the war years. But even during those tough times, a loaf like this Stollen would have been something to look forward to, something to gather the family around after sledding in the cold, for example. And during the scarce days of the war, I like to think that mixing up a little bit of butter and sugar and creating a scrumptious treat like this felt like a small, sweet act of defiance. I own this picture of my grandma and her sister Irmgard with snowballs in their fists on top of a hill, all bundled up, that I think they were about to sled down. And they're smiling at the camera, and I like to imagine them returning to their warm kitchen afterwards, red-cheeked and smiling, ready to dig into a warm loaf. Knowing my grandma, if my aunt got a snowball into her face that day, that's a grudge she held for the rest of her life. I never heard about that specific one, but I heard about many. When I share this Stollen, I think of those cozy moments in my grandma's kitchen when she would tell me about her childhood, the war, and her past, but there is a paradox in it. On the one hand, I sometimes felt disconnected from my German heritage. On the other hand, Stollen is a bread that connects me to the past and to the simple joys of family traditions. It's a little like a bridge across generations, cultures, and even awkward family dynamics, maybe like a symbol of the bittersweet nature of family. Sharing it with all of you today feels like a gift. My grandma used to ask me when I was in college in America, "What's in America? Why are you there?" And if I could talk to her today, I would say, "Hey, Grandma, less than a year after you died in 2010, there was this boy who is now my husband, Dave, and we have these 3 amazing children. One of them is right here. Her name is Elise. She's named after your sister, Elisabeth, who was called Liesel, and she died when she was 9 of diphtheria, which was really hard for the whole family. And there's this church I go to, Grandma. I know you never really liked that I didn't go to church when I was a kid. You would have wanted me to be Catholic, but it's okay. It's still a church. We can compromise there. But knowing my grandma, I don't think she would have been impressed with that at all. So instead, I probably would just say, hey, Grandma, at least there's Stollen. I hope you all enjoy.
Good morning. I'm Jane Blumberg, and Lori and I are on the Immigrant Justice Task Force. While Lori has deep personal and professional experience with immigrants, mine essentially started with the Hakimi family. Most of you know that the task force has been supporting the extended Hakimi family of 12 since they arrived in Lowell 3 years ago tomorrow, actually. We've been intimately involved with this family ever since, and my story of bread relates to this extraordinary and ongoing relationship. So here's the setting. I am at a small kitchen table in Maynard with strangers. Next to me is a young Afghan man, Sardar, with a jolly, bearded countenance who speaks perfect English. Diagonally across from me is a U.S. Army veteran, and across from me, his cheerful, welcoming wife. I have come here because I have heard from someone who heard from someone else that there was a couple who was temporarily housing John's Afghan interpreter, and I am desperate to line up someone to help us with the Hakimi family, arriving any day now. They arrived with 9 children of their own, 3 nephews, no English and no education. Between us on this cramped kitchen table is a stack of cellophane packages of naan, easily 18 to 20 inches high, and each flat loaf a couple of feet long and a foot wide. I can barely see our host. I ask Sardar about the naan, and this turns out to be a springboard for a crash course in Afghan culture that served our team well in those initial days. Sardar became a friend and an invaluable interpreter for those first few months with the Hakimis. Among the things I learned from Sardar that afternoon was that the Hakimis, whoever they were, would feel the same way about naan. When I commented on the quantity of naan in front of us, Sardar laughed. Afghan families are big, he said. I have 14 siblings. This naan would last us a day, maybe. In fact, when the Hakimis did arrive, the need for naan was top of mind for them. It came up in every conversation. Though the heat in the apartment, their new apartment, was broken, the toilet prone to clogging, the breakers inclined to shut off, or perhaps because of all these things, they needed the taste of home. Each volunteer that came to Rock Street to help the Hakimis was asked about naan, and soon every volunteer was arriving with armloads of the bread. Within a few weeks, the family had learned where to buy naan and how you cook it in an electric oven. But in a concrete way, our early gifts of naan laid down a foundation of trust and respect that we could gradually build on. It showed the Hakimis, particularly Astoris, that we understood that food is culture, food is home, food is comfort, and we wanted these things for them. In the 3 years since then, I've been fortunate to have had many meals with the Hakimis, sitting cross-legged in a large circle around bowls of lentils, yogurt with cucumbers, nuts, bologna, orange slices, and of course, naan.
I must get out my supplies. Good morning. I lived in Costa Rica after college. I joined the Peace Corps because I believed in cross-cultural human service, though I didn't really know what that meant. Mostly I joined because I didn't know what to do with myself. I worked with the country's first women-led, women-only cooperative. They made low-fired water jugs, tradition of thousands of years, using the local clay. They would build it up, round and round, perfectly symmetrical. Then they started making other things to get a little more income, selling things to tourists, animals, pots with pre-Columbian themes, decorations made with a chicken feather. I spent a lot of time at Doña Hortensia's house. She was the calm, steady leader of the co-op. Her husband was a sweet man who worked as a tenant farmer. Their house had holes in the walls because he had made the planks by hand. A packed dirt floor, swept daily, chickens in the yard, the outhouse pretty far away. The kitchen area was outside under its own roof. Beside the kitchen fire was Doña Hortensia's metate, a long, wide, curving stone for grinding corn. She pulled and pushed a stone roller back and forth over the dried kernels. Then she'd add water, gather it up, and do it again until a textured dough formed. She invited me to try it, but I was terrible. We laughed about that. She had 7 children to feed, and those tortillas were their most important daily food. Her skill with the metate marked the rhythm of her days. She made over 20, big, round, symmetrical. You know, corn existed on this side of the world way before wheat. It's still a central part of millions of people's diets. Mexican and Southwestern cooks make thin tortillas and arepas, tamales. Central American, South American cooks make their own too. Almost every place has its special way. Living in Costa Rica led me to become a bilingual teacher, which led me to become a bilingual counselor, which led me to care about people leaving their unique heritages because of persecution. When folks come to the US, knowing how to prepare their culture's foods keeps those heritages alive in a new land. Tortillas transport me back to Doña Hortensia and my later trips south of the border. And eating them connects me to friends and family living in South America today. So please try for yourself. Unfortunately, these are not made by me. Try this special daily bread and honor the importance of corn. Feliz Día de Acción de Gracias. Happy Thanksgiving.
We are truly blessed. Thank you for the many ways that you give to this community, through your presence here today, through your generosity, through your service. This month, our collection is shared with Sanctuary Boston, which is a young adult Unitarian Universalist community that brings together college students in the Boston area for worship and small groups. And we also are having a holiday food collection to benefit Open Table, which is a food pantry in nearby Maynard. If you brought food for that donation, you'll see there are bushel baskets here on either side. You're welcome to bring forward your donations at this time. Just be mindful of the ushers. One of the gifts of being part of this community is we offer one another our loving kindness during both times of struggle and times of great joy. And so this morning, 2 people have been asked to be lifted up by us. Our loving care extends to Jeff Lloyd, who is preparing to receive a new kidney on Tuesday. We are grateful for the kidney donor who is a longtime friend of the family. We offer prayers for a smooth procedure and successful recovery. Cards of support are welcome. We celebrate with Kim Novick and Susanna Elliott a new addition to their family. Audrey Grace Warner was born on October 31st. We offer good wishes to their daughter, Eliza, her husband, Steve, baby Audrey, and the happy grandparents. Each one of us carries with us many ties to people who we care about, either in our schools, in our neighborhood, in our families. And you are welcome now to name them aloud who is in your mind and heart this day. Spirit of life, our community gathered here is deeply grateful for the beauty of this place in which we worship. We are thankful also for good food to eat and the health to enjoy it, for the love that binds our lives and sustains our spirits. May this awareness strengthen us for whatever comes our way. In a time of silent prayer and meditation, may we open our hearts to the Spirit of love. This is an abundant table with many breads and the ingredients for many more feasts. Thank you for the gifts of nourishment, the stories of your lives, and the opportunity to be together this morning. May we be mindful throughout the Thanksgiving holiday of the people, places, and circumstances of our lives that feed, nourish, and sustain us. I want to invite Anderson to come forward to lead us in our final hymn.
You guys know this song, right?
our First Parish benediction. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. I ask that you please be seated so the wonderful people who brought their bread can bring it down to be ready for coffee hour for you.